Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to Valorant News. Champions begins just tomorrow, but plenty of drama to discuss today. Potential organizations that are going to get into the EMEA franchising side, but also Zelzas and Zombs giving their thoughts on the Frosty versus 100T drama last night and why they're certainly back in Nadeshot on this particular issue. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss today. First of all, I wanted to mention this. Champions begins, of course, very soon indeed. They've highlighted a few of the NA superstars, Victor, Derek, and of course BCJ. There was a fair bit of drama between BCJ and Stacks going into Masters 2. I suppose we'll see if that'll come to fruition here once again, because, you know, it's good to see these guys back in business. So it's interesting to say where these NA teams should rank, because of course OpTic will be the favourites from North America. But according to a ranking we'll see at the end of the video here that you guys will definitely want to stick around and watch, 100 Thieves actually might be the better team than OpTic, which seems kind of strange to say. We'll see it in a second. So, I mean, yeah, cNed also, where are they going to sit? It's a difficult one to say, but yeah, exciting scenes nonetheless. Now, speaking of next season already, of course, there's been big talks about the EMEA partnership, the North American partnership, APAC as well, of course. Now, supposedly, there was 2 cities in consideration to host the franchise league. Now, this is also a big point in the North American league, just because Shroud, for example, has made it very clear that if, for example, the North American league or just the Americas league in general, actually with, of course, Loud or Furia or whoever's going to be Crew Esports, for example, the Latin American, Brazilian teams, if it's going to be hosted out of Los Angeles, as I believe the Riot LCS, like NALCS is, which you might expect it to be in LA, like I think that'd make the most sense of any city in the United States for it to be hosted in, then Shroud said if it is in LA near where he lives, then he will definitely stay involved in the competitive scene and try and get another spot next season in the franchise league. Now, in the European side, they also have to find a city. Apparently, they've chosen Berlin as their host city, so this is, I think, pretty cool. It makes sense. Obviously, Berlin is usually like at the head for a lot of the League of Legends stuff as well, so I think this makes sense. Barcelona is not going to be where the franchises are going to be hosted, right, for, I suppose, the partnership matches, but therefore it would be cool if Barcelona was in consideration for this. Then Barcelona can host a Masters, a Champions LAN or something, because I think this year we've had some good Champions LANs. Of course, we've had Reykjavik, Copenhagen, now we've got Istanbul. Like Barcelona, I'm sure is probably on the list as well somewhere, like sooner rather than later as well, so that'd be pretty cool instead. Would have been cool to have the hosting in Barcelona, but I think a big question is really also going to be if this gets leaked for North America, then if it's going to be the Los Angeles spot, then all of a sudden it's Shroud is going to be back in business for next season. This also a big update here from Bodog talking about the teams that he expects to make partnerships. So he has mentioned the fact that the EMEA region is relatively boring in terms of which teams are going to make it, and this is his list of teams that he believes are going to make it. Some interesting kind of exclusions, I suppose, from this list, you might well argue. So firstly, Fnatic, they should get it for sure. So this isn't like power ranked or anything in terms of which is most likely or anything, but he's kind of thinking in terms of different regions, like for example the kind of DACH region, or however you meant to pronounce it, like Germany, Austria and Switzerland. They need a representative somewhere, and apparently Big is going to be that representative, at least right now. That is the most likely. Berlin International Gaming, that is the most likely candidate. Now also there's like a Koi Rogue partnership going on that apparently is going to get one of the spots. Na'Vi are going to get one of the spots. You've also got Carmine Corp, right, the French team that might well get the French representation. Liquid, Vitality, they also need a Turkish team, right, so Footballist or maybe BBL are going to get that one. Mad Lions are still in the running right here as well, and then G2. Now there's also the possibility of G2 making the Americas League, which seems unlikely, but they do want it. So like, I mean, G2 big organization, of course, they certainly could get in the Americas League, but of course there's a lot of big name organizations over there, so you might think that based on the history, right, like they might just say, right, okay, G2, you're going to have the European partnership spots, we're going to keep the Americas spots open for other organizations. But look, if G2 do go to America, then there's other organizations potentially in consideration as well. Excel, Heroic, like, you know, OG London, stuff like this could be on the cards. Now, of course, big thing to notice here, the presently best team in the European region is none other than FPX, of course, going into Champions very much arguably as favourites to defend their title from Masters 2 Copenhagen, and FPX is an organisation not getting in here. I think it's probably like a funding thing or like a financial thing that FPX aren't really the biggest organisation in the world and probably won't make franchising. And if that is, of course, the case, then the entire FPX roster will probably want to stick together, depending, of course, on what happens at Champions. But they would, at that point, be free agents, I suppose, like going into the next season. Now, of course, it's possible for an entire organisation to pick those guys up. I think it would be very interesting to see an organisation like Na'Vi or of course, like G2, for example, go through and just swoop up that entire FPX team. Because let's say FPX go into Champions, they might not win it, but let's say they come top 3 or make the finals or something, they probably in that case would be eager to run it back and keep the same roster going into next season, and therefore an org like G2 or Na'Vi could come through and swoop that entire team up. Because there was some talk recently about M3C, for example, and you know, them getting picked up by G2 or even like Moist Esports or whatever. But it turns out now that Nat is going to leave, Chronicle, Redgar, these other guys might leave as well and go and explore their own options. So you know, definitely one to keep in mind there. But yes, FPX not in franchising, it appears, at least because of these, well, what Bodor currently believes is going on that side of things. Let's talk from a more organizational perspective. Cupid, of course, who stepped in for the Guard as their analyst and their kind of strategic help during their LCQ run. He stepped in briefly because his organization that he was playing for was done and dusted for the year in EMEA. He comes over here to the Guards team, does pretty good work for them. Of course, they looked very good, but couldn't quite get the job done in the end versus 100 Thieves. And as he goes on to say, thanks for everything, last couple of months have been amazing, thanks to the players and staff, this type of stuff. And he's going to move back to the EMEA side now, I believe, to actually go and compete again as a professional player. Let's talk Sentinels and Zelsis, right, and all the drama that's been going on there. First of all, Sentinels got the go-ahead, apparently, to send one of their co-streamers to go to Istanbul in person, maybe, for the venue. So, like, even Zelsis says, like, I volunteer as tribute, right? So, maybe he's going to go out there. Who really knows what they're going to do? But, I mean, yeah, and even as Zelsis says, okay, Sentinels, I'm willing to go to Istanbul with Sinatraa, and we will host the biggest esports fighting event in history. You guys have 24 hours. So, yeah, Sentinels still stay killing it on the content and impressions game side. Now, if you guys missed this yesterday, this is a big talking point in the esports world, and I'm going to do a more in-depth video on this on my Call of Duty channel in about an hour's time after this video goes live. But if you guys missed this story, Froste, former member of the mob, when they joined 100 Thieves a couple of years ago, things didn't really work out, and he was talking up the fact that they didn't give them enough money, 100 Thieves, and they effectively, like, 100 Thieves were trying to be predatory towards the mob and, you know, make things off them without kind of giving anything in return and milk them for all they're worth, effectively, talking about sponsorship revenue and stuff like this. Now, Nadeshot came out with a kind of response saying that really these guys, they gave them the support, gave them like 60k a year, each of them, to try and live there, and of course they moved into a house and it was too expensive, and they really just didn't put in the work. They didn't put in the time, barely streaming any hours per month. Yes, there were reasons maybe why they weren't able to do that due to internet and stuff, but at the end of the day, it was their call to go where they did, and Frosty was pretty much the only guy to come out and actually say anything against 100 Thieves. The other guys seemed to agree. They're like, yeah, fair enough, we probably didn't put in the effort deserving of this. Nadeshot came up with huge response, of course, and there was a lot of reaction to this in the Valorant scene, right, because a lot of the pro players in Valorant made it into being the position they're in by a lot of sacrifice, a lot of passion, a lot of just grinding day in, day out, putting in the hours, trying to be the best version of themselves, and also try and, you know, stream and create content as much as they possibly can to build up their brands. And, you know, even as banter, 60k a year, I play for passion, right? So kind of, I mean, yeah, almost joking around, but at the same time, like, I think it's a fair point that a lot of these guys are making. And as Zelsis doubles down on, all I gotta say to this 100T drama is no one cares, work harder, right? And Zelsis is a great example of this, right? Of course, not a particularly well-known player until rather recently. Of course, he was on version 1, but, you know, of course, while he was on the team, putting a lot of effort to streaming and building his personal brand, and now he's one of the top targets for an org like Sentinels when they need a new player, gets that opportunity, and absolutely kills it with this opportunity, right? Like, it doesn't really matter for Zelsis how much he was getting paid by the organization. He's going to be able to make his money back doing content, right? And that was the idea, I think, with the 100 Thieves mob thing, is that, okay, they'll pay them a certain amount of money, but then they can make more than that by doing content, but they weren't really seemingly so eager to do that, right? And as Zelsis says, Nadeshot is a W, shame on anyone who says otherwise. And even Zombs goes on to reply, nah, the internet was down for 2 years, just unlucky, right? So that's how kind of was Frosty was saying, is that their internet was down, or they could only, like, one of them could stream at a time, and therefore they just couldn't do it. It's like, well, if that's the case, you know, get it sorted maybe, right? Because they were the one who chose the house in the first place. Further drama here, as Zelsis says, you know, that stuff was absolutely baffling me. So much I want to say, but it's a bit much for Twitter and not really my place. But kids these days just don't know the struggle or the sacrifice. The worrying about finding the next meal was the funniest part from Zombs, right? You can go and buy groceries and eat pretty well for like $50, $100 a week. Has to be top one worst excuse ever. Not sure how he's even alive right now without the salary then. The house stuff is hilarious. If I got 4 of my best friends and we aren't big or anything, but have such an opportunity on a tier 1 org, a content org like 100 Thieves, I will legit share a room or even the apartments he was showing for 5k and grind out 2 years until we're bigger, right? So, I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of bang on the money for these guys, to be honest. And even Asuna comes out, I love 100 Thieves, right? So kind of defending Nadeshot and the organization from all the drama of the last couple of days. But definitely an interesting response, right? And I think it's understandable given what a lot of these guys have done to get to their position. They, you know, see people not really wanting to put in the time and put in the sacrifice and say, well, you know, come on, sunshine, buck your ideas up a little bit rather than complaining about the opportunity that a lot of people would kill for. And even still, it's like, look, mean, everyone's talking about 100 Thieves, but seems like they really didn't do all that much wrong. Just before we close out the video, I wanted to mention this here from Weltiers, who comes out, of course, analyst for Sentinels, with a really interesting power ranking. So he designed what he calls a tractor. This is a team rating adjusted, considering team opponents and region. So yeah, a tractor performance. Now, this is what it looks like. So pretty much, I'm not exactly sure how this works. He did explain it in his kind of, very in-depth tweet thread that you guys might want to check out. Looking at, effectively, okay, stats are a large part of this, but also considering the level of the opponents, the kind of elo rating of the opponents, this type of stuff. So it's based on their stats, but it's also based on the strength of their competition, right? So this is why organizations like EDG, despite having a dominant performance, for example, at their LCQ, their opponents weren't that strong. Therefore, they only find themselves about the 8th favorites going into this tournament, technically, according to these numbers. Very interesting to me that 100 Thieves actually go above OpTic on this list, as do DRX. FPX are only the 4th best, Loud at 91, then Fnatic and PaperX, right? So PaperX apparently favourite for this tourney. Fnatic right behind them. I think, honestly, in general, like, you can't really read into this too much, I think. But in general, it gives a good indication of which teams are the favourites, because despite EDG having this phenomenal online performance, like, they're not necessarily going to be able to translate that to LAN. They might be able to, of course, who really knows, against the best teams in the world, but quite a severe drop-off here between xCNed and then down to Furia, Boom, Xerxia, Zeta. So these are, I guess, the C-tier teams, these the B-tier, these the A-tier, and these technically the S-tier that should be the favourite for this tourney. But, you know, OpTic this low, kind of surprising, but maybe because of their recent results that weren't quite so good, finishing out Masters to Copenhagen. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new as always, take care, and I'll see you next time.